Well, cheers, and I do buckaroos, and I think, are you? Well, part two of my old-fashioned experiment. So I did an old-fashioned with this Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select. It's a 94 proof whiskey, although most will tell you should make a Manhattan with 100 proof. Yeah, we're close enough. uh, so I did the Single Barrel Select, but now we're doing the Single Barrel Rye, also 94 proof. But the idea was to use the same brand, which is why I picked these two, because I have bourbon and I have rye, but this is as close as I could get to the same brand. And here I have the drink served straight up. You can serve this straight up as you like. Most bartenders will serve it on the rocks. I prefer it straight up, but that's really up to you, right? However you like the drink. So what I've got here is I typically would make this drink if I make it at home 2 ounces, but because I was doing the two, I made them at an ounce and a half. So I've got an ounce and a half of the rye. I've got about a quarter ounce of some simple syrup that I made myself here. It's in the Kansas City Candy Company jar. It's a nice jar. Anyways, the reason it's a little darker, it's not clear like your typical bar syrup or simple syrup, is because I use raw sugar to make it. So anyway, I've got about a quarter ounce of that. I've got the one cherry as a garnish. I'd like to keep my garnish simple, and you can do it any way you want. I've seen various garnishes in different recipes, but the recipe that I'm basing this one off of, I have made a change or two, but the recipe that I'm basing this one off of just use the maraschino or this this particular dark cherry, the Luzzardo. Anyway, so again, 1.5 ounces, quarter ounce syrup, about 4 or 5 dashes of the Regan's Orange Bitters. What I have here basically, the only difference between this and a Manhattan for me, the way I make them is the simple syrup in place of the sweet vermouth. Sweet vermouth, you got a Manhattan. Swap out the sweet vermouth for simple syrup, you got an old fashioned. Anyway, if you're at my house anyway, that's what you're going to get. I don't really like a sweet drink, so a lot of places, a lot of bars anyway, pubs, lounges will make them too sweet for me. And I think because of that, I think a lot of folks have gotten used to a sweeter version of an old fashioned, so they'll make them sweeter at home too. So I wanted to find a version. I wanted to find a version that worked for my taste buds, so I did. And then I kind of tweaked it a little bit too. I think that's what a lot of folks don't realize. You can make a cocktail any way you want to. The cocktail plates aren't going to show up at your door. So the obvious here, the biggest difference between the two is obviously the rye is a little spicier than the Tennessee whiskey. The Tennessee whiskey is a little bolder, but also a little sweeter. So I don't get as much vanilla. I don't get those deep caramel or toffee notes either. But you do get more intense spice notes from the rye, and which do really pair well with the bitters. Do I prefer a rye or in this case Tennessee whiskey, but would I prefer a rye or a bourbon in an old fashioned? I got to be honest. For me, I actually like a good bourbon and rye if I'm doing or a good bourbon for either drink. I prefer the bourbon if I'm making a Manhattan or an old fashioned. The caveat here for me is you have to use a bourbon that uses rye as a secondary grain. You can't use a wheated bourbon. If you're using a wheated bourbon, your drink on both cocktails are going to be much too sweet, and they're not going to have enough body to hold up to everything else going on. A bourbon that uses rye is a little meatier than a wheated bourbon. The wheated bourbons are very popular right now. With Pappy being extremely expensive, and then the other part is Weller. Weller used to be a very affordable whiskey. All of a sudden, the price on that has gone up. It's got wheated. Wheated bourbons are a little sweeter. They're a little softer, and they're very popular right now. I got to admit, though, I prefer a traditional bourbon that uses rye as a secondary grain, because I think it adds dimension. I think it makes a much more complex whiskey, in my particular opinion. But anyway, having said all of that, this rye is brilliant. But yes, the cocktail is decidedly sweeter using the Tennessee whiskey, or if you're going to use a bourbon, it's going to feel sweeter than using a rye. So if you like it a little spicier, use a rye. Either cocktail. If you want it a little bolder, a little sweeter, use a bourbon. And that's what you're going to get. Again, this is just my opinion. Is I also feel that using the bourbon, it makes a more complex cocktail too. The rye will give you a little more spice on both the Manhattan or the old fashioned that I'm making here, but I think the drink is more complex with the bourbon, in my opinion. So there you go. There it is. That's all I got. Either way, man, I gotta tell you, the drink is damn tasty. Either way, I wouldn't turn one down. If a friend made one with rye or bourbon. Again, the only issue for me, it took me a while to warm up to an old fashioned because they tend to be too sweet for me. But making them the way I make them, making them the way I want them, they're not too sweet. So there you go. I'm going to move this, and I'm worried that I'm going to knock that down. There's a little baby spider. I don't want to kill it. I just kind of want to move it out of my way. There we go. I didn't want to kill the thing. I just didn't want it. Anyway, I'm the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor as a man. All right, good guy. Cheers.